He's an associate professor of national security and strategic studies at Curtin University. Professor, it's good to see you again. Now, just walk us through the importance of Kreminna. We are hearing the governor there in Luhansk say the Russians could lose their entire line of defense if Kreminna is retaken by Ukraine.
Look, I mean, we need to understand that some of these towns, I won't call them cities, but towns, they're relatively small population-wise, but their importance comes from the fact that they sit at the intersection of local roads, which allows force maneuvering or disruption of logistical lines of supply. And this is what this fighting is about. In terms of Russian defenses being breached should this particular town fall, I think that's a bit of an optimistic scenario, because we need to recognize that over the past few months, the Russian military command has been building up multi-layered defensive barriers in areas they consider to be of particular strategic importance. Also, not just to deflect any potential further assaults launched by the Ukrainian military, but also as a fallback solution for their own planned offensive, which some expect Moscow may mount in the near future over the next month or so. So even if the city will be breached, or even if this town will be recaptured by the Ukrainian forces, I don't think it would have a fatal effect on the defensive layout of the Russian military in the area, because, okay, one line will be breached, but there would be several more lines that the Russians will continue to rely as a fallback solution should they actually consider retreating from that particular settlement.
But when we look overall on Ukraine's counteroffensive, many analysts say they've been quite successful. And we did see the U.S. recently pledge more aid and weapons to Ukraine. How much of that is seen on the battlefield?
Unfortunately, not that much. And that's what we need to understand. First of all, an expectation that Ukraine can pull similar offensive to the one that really changed the turn of this war, the offensive near Kharkiv in late August, September. Since then, the Ukrainians haven't been able to mount similar offensive. Again, the recapturing the strategically important city of Kherson wasn't because of the result of the Ukrainian offensive, rather than because the Russians decided to retreat from the city themselves, even though the Ukrainians contributed to the Russia's decision-making by effectively compromising the lines of supply. We also need to recognize that, unfortunately, the Ukrainian forces have been sustaining increasingly heavy casualties over the past few months. The Russians have been knocking out the heavy equipment, heavy armaments, including the artillery pieces, without which you cannot really claim a lot of success.
Right.
And the military aid that was coming into Ukraine from the United States and Western Europe wasn't really replacing everything the Ukrainians were either losing or utilizing, for example, in terms of ammo rounds or something like that. And for example, if we take the latest announcement of 45 billion US dollar military aid to Ukraine, the bulk of this money, which was pledged by Joe Biden during President Zelensky's visit to Washington just some days ago, the bulk of this money will stay in the United States. The bulk of this money will be spent on replenishing U.S. depleted stocks or training U.S. Ukrainian military personnel in the U.S. Not that money will actually end up in Ukraine.
Okay, Professor Alexey Muraviev, that's all the time I have left. Thank you so much for joining us on TRT World.